Okay, hello there, everyone, and welcome to the Non-Fungible Rebels. Today, I'm going to talk to John Briggs, the owner of Food Fight Studios. We met. What was it like? Over a year ago, about a year and a half ago. I was a speaker at the San Diego's Crypto Business Conference, and John was in the audience. And that's exactly like what I love most about speaking in different conferences is because you get to meet loads of awesome people from the audience and I love later on introducing them to my audience. So this is what's exactly happening. We my speech resonated with John. It feels like we're really on the same page about the space, about our opinions about the space, and we look at the same direction, it feels like. So I feel like we're gonna have an interesting conversation. So welcome, John. How are you doing?
Welcome. I love it. First of all, I love your shirt. It's badass. No time for
Thank
fake
you.
people. It's probably like I didn't know that you had that shirt back then. You weren't wearing that on stage,
No,
but
it wasn't. No.
but it was fun. And actually, I think you had like a cold, so I was like kind of trying to avoid you at that San Diego crypto business
I
conference.
coughed a lot. Yes, that's
Yep.
true. I
But
couldn't help myself. Yeah.
what you said was so like resonated with me. I remember like my head just kept bobbing up and down, and I was in there like doing work as we were listening to it, and but it was so good that like I had to connect with you. So glad that we did. No fake people, no time for that. And also, you told me we're going live like 2 seconds before this. I love that too. So here we are. Let's
I
continue the
thought you
convo.
knew, like I always do that live, but yeah, no. I think that's another way. I was talking about just before the going live. We were talking about the fact that I'm trying to intentionally filter out my audience and shape it the way I'd prefer it to be. And I think that's what's happening with my guests as well, because sometimes my guests would say, no, I don't want to show my face on camera, or I don't want to go live, and that for me is indication. I'm like, okay, this podcast is for rebels. If you really can't do that, probably yeah, I don't know, it's a big deal for me. So
Yep.
I'm happy you said yes.
Yes, no, happy to
um
do it. And I don't know if you can hear it or not, but there's either a woodpecker over there or there's someone banging over there. But if you can't hear it, we'll just roll with it. If not, this is what live is, so we'll just do it
oh, you mean from my side?
from my side, not from your side.
Oh no, I can't hear
Okay,
anything
good.
from your side.
All right.
So very good.
All right, let's
Okay,
go.
cool. So yeah, John, let's start by you explaining what you're doing in the field, because I've seen, we had lots of conversations after that. You didn't catch any cold from me, so
Nope.
we kept communicating afterwards.
Mhm.
So we're good. And okay, this is what it is. Living in a big city, the sirens. Anyway, yeah. So we had lots of conversations, and I am I know what you're doing, and I know that you're doing tons of awesome stuff in the space. So for the audience, just let us know what you do in Web3.
Yeah, like, well, look, in Web3, I started like 6 or 7 years ago, just doing creating a kind of like an explainer video, but it was more of an animated story about what Bitcoin was. At that point, most people didn't understand it, so true to animation, they just send over to the animation studio and say, hey, kind of explain this complicated subject. So we produced a almost embarrassing, but proud of animation that explained just the basics of Bitcoin. That was kind of my introduction to it. Of course, when you're doing that, you kind of start to open the books and read it and understand it so that you can explain it
Yeah.
correctly. So that's kind of how I jumped into it. So had a feel for crypto and all that stuff. Definitely drank the Kool-Aid and believed in the theory of all of this stuff, and was very intrigued with it. And so when NFTs kind of came along, um, I paid attention. I'd already understood crypto a little bit, so it wasn't crazy for me to jump in. But it took me a full year of listening to like Lindsay Lohan peddle, crap NFTs on Clubhouse to understand kind of what these things were, what people were using them for, and actually what they could be. And that's what we did. So partnered with a guy that I've known for a long time, kind of collected his physical art. Guy that we tried to go the old-fashioned way and create some IP together before, and this was the opportunity, and we kind of paired up with his wife and a guy that I've known for 20 years and didn't know a thing about what we were doing in Web3 technical side, NFTs, any of that stuff. But we use this as an opportunity to kind of build this IP and kind of co-create it with a group of people.
Okay, sounds good. It's interesting because, like, if you have noticed, there are loads of PFP projects that are still around at the moment, and which were like really popular back in the days, that are now sort of trying to figure out the IP stuff, right? Like, many PFP projects came out just as PFP projects that didn't really have a plan or a business model behind it, and now everyone tries to figure out how to deal with it because they need to sort of to have something sustainable behind it. So many people kind of ended up building a game or looking into their how they can capitalize on their IP and stuff like that. But it feels like from the very beginning you already had that in mind, and you're not doing this back and forth at the moment.
No, I think that's why we're still sticking around. And when people were crazy, like, why are you still doing this? Back when the quote unquote bear market came, and we just kept going because we weren't really in it for the shiny PFPs or this was just a component of the overall business that we were looking to create, and the technology, really not even the technology. But it allowed us to really think of things in unique ways and experience things in new ways that took what we were doing to a different level, and it's sustained us to where we are now. I think like 22 months in or something along those lines. So jumped in right at the height of stuff, and still kind of stuck around, but happy to do it.
Yeah, I think it's really nice to approach it that way. I mean, I was at Zebu Live conference a couple of days ago here in London, and there were tons of people, and most of the conversations were about, yeah, I mean, it's not very fortunate that we're in this bear market, but looking around, we ended up with the people who actually care that are still here. So it's so much easier to find the right people and to communicate with them, because most of the noise and most of the people who came just for the money are probably not around anymore. So I think that's kind of the silver lining of being in a deep crypto winter, I guess.
One of the things we spent a lot of time and energy making sure that we were not included in batching up with some of the people that you could kind of see. It was greasy a little bit in terms of seeing NFT projects or really just crypto in general do some of the things that they did, but like we were kind of in the same playground a little bit. So we spent a lot of time and energy to make sure that we separated ourselves and we weren't that. So we did a lot of delivering, probably over delivering, just out of like, I don't want to be in the same kind of conversation or breath as some of the things that we were seeing out there. So it's really worked. It's been a cool ride, but and far from over. But I think when the dust settles on everything, all of the crazy, this, you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way, you have to do it that way, because this is the space. Really, when the dust settled, that wasn't really the case. And you just can continue if you have good values and a business model and a plan beforehand. You're going to stand. And I bet you that's a lot of the companies or businesses or NFT projects that are still standing are similar.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's interesting, like, since you've been from the very beginning, and I mean, now particularly we're talking about the NFTs, so probably I'll just continue with that. How much have things changed since then? Like, obviously during the hype periods, there was lots of noise, lots of messages, the Wagmi vibe, many happy people, many people who made a lot of money and all that stuff. Now the picture is completely different. But in terms of, like, how it impacted the way you're approaching projects and the way, like, your everyday kind of building phase, what are the biggest differences and challenges, or maybe benefits of things cooling down a little bit?
Well, I think for the first 3 months, I took years off of my life because there was just so many different terms to learn or things to learn,
Yeah.
and all that stuff, and it was just getting caught up. So, I mean, a major change is we realized that you don't have to do things the way that these the the OGs are saying that you have to do it.
Yeah.
And there are ways that you can do things. So one of the big thing is, we had a very high cost development, like Web3 development, like Web3 website, Web3 smart contracts, and things like that. Um, but there's now tools out there that are no code that, like, we can do. So I think we spend a lot of time understanding, like, okay, what is everybody telling us? We took a bunch of information in, and like, okay, now let's deconstruct that, and what is true and what is not, and what can we do. So because we kind of came in from the outside, with a fresh perspective, even though this was very new, we were able to do things like fun interactive components of our NFT stuff that most people would say, you shouldn't be doing that, or you can't do that, you have to hire this code developer and all that stuff. I think
Yeah.
we've gotten all over rid of all those things. And I think when people say, the onboarding for Web3 is 100%, it's very difficult, but
Yeah.
but look, it onboarded us as a component to our business, and now we can make smart contracts. So there are things that have really made things easier, like no code, things like Nifty Kit. Not a sponsor of any of that stuff. Maybe they should sponsor your podcast for this. But those are things that we, before, you're taking thousands of dollars and months into condensing it into something that we could knock out in a couple hours, and that really accelerates the path, and the things that we could do in this world was a major thing.
Yeah, got it. I want to talk about something that I'm truly passionate about, and
Yeah.
usually it's like the main topic that I cover when I'm going to, to speaking at conferences, or kind of, I am a guest at podcasts. So let's dive into communities, right? It's I feel like many PFP projects kind of failed in this market because they built a community of speculators and flippers versus community that they attracted because of what they stand for or what they're building, right? So their communities came in for the money and left because there was no longer an opportunity to make money. So in your case, like, how did you approach your community building, and who are the people around you in your community, and how did you attract them?
Yeah, no, look, and I would love not to take credit for any of this stuff, because I didn't do it. But there's four partners for us that did this, and they're a husband and wife team that really ran the community. And while we were out there trying to learn, smart contracts and lingo in the NFT world, they were kind of holding down the fort. But it was like all of us are genuine, and we genuinely care about people, about our reputations. So even if I wasn't physically in the Discord with them, they were genuine. So what happened was, when you have natural people that kind of get together, a lot of people left. A lot of people were trying to speculate and make a quick buck. But the ones that kind of stuck around, um, they're doing the same stuff. They're doing game nights. They're doing they're doing artist showcases and playing poker together and doing all these cool things. So they just became friends with everybody in that world, and just kind of built the community the right way, not as a Russell Brunson funnel tactic to get people in to do what you want with them. That's not what we're any of us are about. And Frank and Crystal Anatra, who are husband and wife team of the Battle Bunnies, they are the ones that really handled that community. You should have Krista on to answer that. But one thing that's we all agree on, and she says all the time, is she treats people how she wants to treat people, and or be treated. And that sounded bad, but she treats people how she wants to be treated, and we do games and fun things of like stuff that she wants to do, and it's really attracted the similar type of people, and it's been really strong. It's been really cool to see.
Yeah, I think that's very important because yes, it's easier to attract people when you tell the narrative of you're going to make money fast, and it's very attractive, and the community will grow much faster and easier that way. But I'm not so sure about the quality of the people, first of all, but also the quality of the engagement and the relationships with the project, but also between themselves, right? So I feel like when there is something beyond money, that is when people stick around much longer. When it's about a like-minded people gathering around a certain interest or a certain purpose. When it's mission-driven, when it's about something else than money. Money usually, when that stuff has been nailed down, money usually is there after effect, and it does come eventually. Not so quick. It's not like overnight success. It maybe it's not as many zeros as we would wish, but it always happens. Like, when this part has been taken care of and taken care of well, then the money is just a matter of time. That's kind of what I've seen and what I believe in. So yeah.
100%. I mean, build the right way and build the strong core, and then the money takes care of itself. And I think all four of us really believe that, and that's why we kind of align like in the way that we do with this. Because one good thing about it is not a lot of money here in NFTs these days, which is good in a lot of ways, because it's really taken off the people that are chasing a soccer ball around like little kids. To what's the next big thing? Like a lot of those people have gone out. Those aren't the people that hang out. You couldn't wear that shirt, or you could, and you probably did, but it'd be hard to wear that shirt, a year ago or something. No time for fake people, because that's all that was around, or a good majority of it was around, and things that we were seeing.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about fake people, especially in social media, when you're not even talking to people, in most cases it's kind of cartoon avatars that they're hiding behind, right? So you don't even know like what kind of people they are there. But I feel like now what we've achieved is yet another level. So I call this fake authenticity. It's when people realize that authentic and genuine is what actually attracts and what people really value. So they come up with this fake, authentic image of themselves by sharing vulnerable stories that never happened to them, or kind of, pretending to be really caring and kind, but but it's not backed up by actions and stuff like that. So, I do believe that we still have tons of fake people around. They just disguise themselves behind that fake authenticity facade, and maybe many people don't see through it, but believe me, like as soon as the situation comes when they have to prove who they are, then the masks will be off, right? So and it's not just the Web3 thing. Like I've seen this happen in online marketing space like many years ago. It's probably just human nature. The reason for this and I didn't think that this t-shirt would be like the spotlight of our conversation at any point, but the reason I'm kind of following kind of the message is because what I've realized is it's so easy to get distracted by social media, to get sucked in to drama, to fake conversations, to following fake influencers and all that stuff, and sidetrack from what's important. That I realized that it's a valuable time that you can't get back, right? If you end up like being a victim of a scammer and lose some ETH, eventually with the time you can make more ETH and kind of bring it back in some sense. But if you lose like 1 hour of your time, you can't bring back that 1 hour. So to me, I'm like, I'm becoming more protective about the time and the engagement and the sort of conversations that I'm having with people. Trying to make sure that I'm having it with the right people, the people that I enjoy talking to, and people that hopefully we both give value to each other during our conversations and engagement, versus just chasing cloud, following influencers, and I don't know, talking to people only who have big audiences and who you could potentially benefit from at some point. So yeah, that's basically the reasoning behind it.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. First, it's called a sociopath, right? The people that are pretending to be authentic just because it's a marketing strategy, which I hate that stuff, right? Authenticity shouldn't be a marketing strategy. It just should be who you are, and it comes off that way, right? So look, the one of the things that in our business, again, we weren't just building this IP in the Battle Bunnies, we were creating for other influencers. So had a very backstage understanding of that industry. And for me, look, the personal development industry was awesome. That like I was the kind of kid with no money back in the day that would sit in Barnes and Noble because they let you read there for free. So these
Mm.
are things that's how I learned about money. Back in the day. Um, and life in general. So like it's been very great to me. But unfortunately, just like anybody came into the NFTs or the ICOs and stuff, and with great intentions, and then you have these big bad wolves that kind of come in here. The personal
Mm.
development industry is also a predatory industry from a lot of
Yeah.
people. So you really have to know, really, you want to trust, and I think that's what they prey on, is people that want to trust. They believe in these things, and
Yeah.
the reality is they're spending way more money on things that they shouldn't spend, and then they're being upsold and downsold and this and that,
Yeah.
for things that they don't really need.
Pushed
So
through funnels that
yep,
you really hate. So yeah.
yep, yep. And I understand. Look, I understand marketing and sales. You have to do it. Everybody does it, and it's a really fine line. But there's a lot of people out there that are faking, and I've kind of uh, at one point when people were hitting us up to ask to create for them. Um, we were turning down people pretty
Mm.
frequently, more than we were accepting people, just because at the end of the day, if you have a five-star shining success program that you just like figured out on a weekend and now are selling it to people as the lifesaver, it's not something that I kind of wanted to help with. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, but that's an industry, any industry, right? So a lot of people, I think a lot of the stuff that we learned when we heard like in this space, in the crypto space, in the NFT space, the reality is it's the same everywhere. Humans are humans, and it might be a little fancy different word, or it might be a little combination
Mm.
of things, but the reality is, there's bad people everywhere. So I'm glad that we met in San Diego,
Yeah.
and I'm glad that we were able to connect today.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of it, right? Genuine human connections and relationships, because otherwise it's just I don't know, like I don't really imagine myself sort of interacting with people only when it's needed, only when they are like at a high places and doing well and all that stuff, because that's not really like a human relationship, like, right? So, and it's interesting you mentioned human nature, because I totally agree with you there. Back a few years ago, I was interviewing Andreas Antonopoulos for the podcast, and I asked like how much of it is like human nature, what's the impact of it in this whole kind of crypto space, and he told that it's all human nature, like all of it is based on human nature. So I feel like in this space, I admire and respect coders, and as someone who can't really read code, this is for me something really fascinating and magical. But it feels like those who can read people even better than the code are having some kind of advantage in here. I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like people, those with stronger people skills, who can read people better, who can predict behaviors of the human nature, who can tell better stories, definitely are in a really good space, spot in this space, basically.
Yeah, look, and it's not all negative. These are great skills to have if you can learn to tell stories and connect and empathize with people. That's what makes a good story. Right? If you can empathize with the character, um,
Yeah.
then these are great things to have. So it's just again, these are great tools that some people use for bad things, just like AI is used for bad things and good things. The majority of it is good, I think, in a lot of ways. But totally agree with you. And I spent, it's a skill that I developed kind of on accident, just because I had like a derelict mother that like would let me play around by myself. So like I would hang out at the mall at like 5 years old and just like kind of watch people. So you can kind of
Mm.
see how people act right in different ways. So I feel like it kind of gave me an advantage of kind of understanding. So there'll be times, to your point, where I'll see somebody on stage or in a video, and I'm like, how does anybody fall for this? Because look what they're doing. Like they're not genuine
Yeah.
about that, right? They're like, look at the smile just went off his face 2 seconds ago, unnaturally, right? So like but people fall for that stuff, and that's what stinks. So I love what you're doing. I love that conversation, and there needs to be more people out there that kind of speak the truth, because it's hard to come by these days, but it's out there. So it's not like everybody's like this. You're one of the truth
Yep.
sayers. That's why I subscribe to your Substack. It's legit. It's where I get a lot of my information from in the stuff that we're doing, because you've been ahead of this game. You've been in this game for a long time, and you're one of the good people. You are someone I trust here. So
Oh, thank you so much. It's interesting you mentioned conferences and sort of speakers, and I'm sure not many people talk about this, but in the Web3 space, the conferences, many conferences are very corrupt, and part of the sponsorship package is basically putting you on stage, which is why it kind of eventually impacts the quality of the speakers and then the conference attendees experience in general, and then the quality of the knowledge that those speakers are sharing with their audiences. So unfortunately, many people kind of by default trust and respect people just because they are on stage, but not everything is so straightforward. And unfortunately, because it's like a whole ecosystem feeding lots of people, not many people are willing to go out there and talk about this, right? But it is how it is, and unfortunately that's where we're at, and there aren't many conferences that kind of differentiate from that aspect. Unfortunately, there are just few, and I'm happy that there are still few out there, but most of them are having this issue for sure. So
but
yeah.
it's no different from having an influencer say they wear a certain type of lotion and stuff, and they're getting paid for it. So like there's a reason that there's policies like that in place. So sure,
Yep.
if you're at a conference and someone's speaking and giving a great speech about their cool tool, you would hope that it's pretty known that they are there being paid or paying to be there. But it's not the case always.
Yeah, not always, and that's why I think it's very important for people just to do their own research, to look around, to dig a bit deeper. I know it's time consuming, but like at least to do enough research to know who to follow, right? Because that kind of really impacts their experiences, the level of the risk of being scammed, the quality of the knowledge that they will be gaining, and all that stuff. Because the space can be extremely overwhelming when you're just getting into it. It's very chaotic. It moves very, very fast. You need some real people who you should follow just to make sure that you're getting the legit stuff out of it all. So
And
yeah.
don't jump in with both deep right away, right? So I mean, when I say do this or don't, I'm not giving any advice. I don't know anybody here other than you with this, but don't jump in right away, because that's where I think that's part of what gets people. Not only is it's overwhelming, but it's exciting. So once you understand and unlock some
Mm,
of these things, like we've experienced this stuff, like, wow, this is amazing, this is awesome, and you just want to experience it more and test this and
yeah.
test that, and that's a personality type that unfortunately people can take advantage of. So ease in, feel like, do your own research, but also just don't, if you do your research, don't just jump in and bet the farm and jump into all the stuff that you're doing right away. Like, that's a mistake that I see a lot of people making. It's really heartening to see in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
because it's a problem.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because, like, I haven't met many patient people in this space.
Mm.
I'm one of the most impatient people, probably, out there as well. So that's one of my problems as well. It's very kind of, hard to take your time and sort of, stop a little bit and kind of evaluate a bit further. And we're all like, we spoke about human nature, like we're all emotional creatures who kind of, uh, although theoretically we know about this stuff, but like we still fall for hype and FOMO at some point, right? Like some are more immune to it than the others, but once in a while we all fall for it anyway. So yeah, it happens.
It is what it is. So there's a lot of things here that is great, and I think that's the stuff to focus on. But either way, what do you want to talk about next?
Okay, so I know that storytelling is a big element in
Yeah.
your project, and as a fiction author myself, I'm like a very big advocate for storytelling, and I think like storytelling in marketing is very powerful as
Hmm.
well, not just in just writing fiction, and also sort of it ties in with the communities as well. So like storytelling and communities are two things I'm very passionate about. So I know that you're kind of you have tied in both somehow. So I'd like you to kind of tell how you have been approaching it for your project and how kind of that works.
Well, I think, like you said, like storytelling, it's become kind of a buzzword, and that's like where it's annoying for me was
Yeah.
when these people that they're doing marketing and stuff now, it's like they're storytellers and all that stuff. But for me, it's there's no better way to connect with somebody than with a story, right? And I think people are built in their nature through stories. And there's a million books out there that'll say back in the day the reason why it's wired is there was no writing and stuff, so um, people had to tell the story of where to avoid the animal over the hill or something like that. So you're very descriptive and things, and that's
Mm.
kind of how we're wired, and we remember these things. So for me, it's fun to tell a good story, but it's also a way to for people to remember some of the things that we said. Like one thing that stuck with me um, was some of these old things like the Iliad and the Odyssey.
Mm.
Those have lasted the test of time. And if you before a point where we were even written in a book. But how would that happen? It's because if you look back, it's very descriptive. It's like the green-eyed Athena or whatever it is, right? It's they're describing certain characters. So, and we remember it. So like for me, um, there's a great book that's on storytelling and marketing mix called Perennial Seller by Ryan Holiday. Super good book. It's super underrated. I don't know anybody that's read it. Just kind of came
I
across it.
haven't, but I really like Ryan Holiday, so
Yep.
I should add it to my to read
Yep.
one. I'm reading Seth Godin's Tribe at the moment, but
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
probably that one should be next.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, no, I mean, he kind of takes it from a perspective of like, hey, there's these businesses that have been around for 200 years. There's some that have been
Mm.
around like way longer than that. But it's like, why? So he kind of studied them in a non studious way, and
Mm.
just kind of told the story of why these businesses, and kind of put it together to a book and stories, and what makes something perennial and stand the test of time. And
Mm.
it is story, and it's things that you can remember. I think that's what marketing is too, right? You're trying to get people to remember, whether it's like a
Yeah.
sale, or something that you wanted to tell a story about the sale of why you should have the sale and things like that. So um, it's I highly recommend that book. We should start a book club if you don't already, because
Well,
you read the same
actually,
stuff.
you're not the first one who told me that. Like, in the past month, I've been hearing this a lot, and I kind of came back to reading much more than I did in the past couple of years. So probably that should start becoming a thing. Yeah, I mean, I'll be considering it.
Yeah, no, I think you absolutely should. But there's a lot of really important things that I think, if you're going to do marketing the right way, that stories can teach you. That's one of the books. But if once you come across another one, definitely send it my way, because I consume that stuff up all day long.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing. Like, I'm reading some books that have been written like years ago. Like, they are not really fresh new books. But the fundamentals is still there. It's kind of, it's still valid today, and it still works. And back then maybe there were like super cutting edge things that people still didn't believe in. But now, like, looking backwards and kind of seeing how it actually developed, these books actually kind of told you what was going to happen and how to approach it in advance. So I think there's a lot to unpack there. And sometimes, like, when you yourself are not very talented storyteller, like, in those books you can see some of your ideas, but, like, in a way better, concise and polished way. So that kind of helps also to sort of shape your own mindset and kind of put it into a more structured way as well. So yeah,
I think
it's
for people that are creating content, and the way that you can create content now, is stuff that we couldn't create 5 years ago without a hefty budget. So you're seeing a lot more types of content that are feature film like related, and things. And so what's really cool is this is like, you could go to the school of Steven Spielberg just by watching all of his stuff if you like that, and you could
yeah.
find ways to kind of put it into the stuff that you're doing. I think that's really everything that's done in history, is everything is combined. There's nothing new. So there are ways to integrate stories, and for people that are creating content, literally just on a weekend gives you an excuse to sit down and watch some of these things, these commercials. It's a free masterclass in a lot of ways. Can I plug something which I wasn't anticipating doing?
Go ahead.
Is it good? And because I wasn't
Yeah,
anticipating even going live, we didn't know we were going to talk about, so it just kind of came in the conversation. But story
yeah. Go
related,
ahead.
story related. This is one way I think that you make story stick is this is from the Battle Bunnies, and it's the TCG that's just pre-released. But this is
Hmm.
a playing card like Pokemon. That's my
Okay.
character that I created, right? So they're playable cards that people create backstories for, and then they become
Okay.
playable cards in
Nice.
there. So when we say like, how do you do storytelling the right way, and how do you integrate it into the stuff that you're doing? You make people part of the story, and
Mm.
it's more fun that way, especially if you're cultivating the right type of people
Yep.
that love this same type of things, but they're all like-minded in similar values. So that's
Yeah.
literally it's what's allowed us um, to create a story, and then off of that story build a trading card game. Which the coolest part is none of the founders of the project did. These were fans of the book that loved
Oh
TCG
wow.
games and then made their
That's
own game,
super cool.
right?
That's
So
super cool. So
super
so
cool.
so yeah, I think sort of, that's the next level of community engagement and post storytelling, right? Like co-creation, like creating something together,
Hmm.
because that's when they feel ownership and belonging and feel like they're participating, their opinion matters, they are part of the process as well, so they become essentially the co-authors of that story, which is always powerful and always great. I mean, obviously, it's not realistic to think that absolutely everyone in the community will be actually super active and participating in the whole thing. But those who would like to, it's always a nice way to put it together for them. And it's very challenging. I know that it's very hard, actually, to create the safe enough environment and sort of the conditions where people can feel safe enough and comfortable enough to come in, share ideas, brainstorm together with people they've never met before, and all that stuff. So I know it's not easy, but I also know that once you're able to do that, that quality of the relationship that we spoke about is completely different, right? It gets to a much deeper level, and yeah, people who put so much time and effort into that community most probably are not the people who will be leaving as soon as the money dries out, right?
That's it. Look, and it's not for everybody. Like most people are TCG players, but when it's most people aren't going to read a book. They don't read a Twitter post these days, right? But some will, and you give them multiple experiences with it and make them part of it. And it's not like they just feel like they're part of it, because they are part of it, and it's ways to connect in different ways. So most of the characters in the book are co-created. Their names of Discord names, even their lands that were contests that were held. So it's been a very really fun, rewarding experience. But they don't feel like they're part of it because they are part of it, and they've become stars in this lore. So like, there's a character, Miss Firefly, in this book, and that's her Discord name, and she is like a hero. She's a star in this book, and she's not someone that just jumped in and said, I'm going to start writing and do this stuff. This is something she popped in, and over time, developed the relationships with people to the point where she's come out and wrote these amazing stories that some get used, and it's but either one, it's nothing goes to waste. That we all put it together, we all read our stories, and
Yeah.
it's really cool. So it's been real rewarding to see, and we're just getting started with it. So
Yeah, it's I think it's really cool. I think what this whole period in the space hasn't been very easy, right? It's over
mhm,
a year, like a year and a half, that things are kind of really slowed down, and there are lots of challenges, and even building becomes a bit harder because of the financial resources and the
mhm.
scarcity, and like investors being cautious and sitting and waiting to see what's happening next and all that stuff. So it's not an easy period, but at the same time it feels like this is when the noise goes out, and the hype goes out, and you're not under the spotlight with so much attention, so you have less pressure from that perspective. So you have the mind share and the space and the time to actually create for the sake of creating, and not for this whole kind of idea and goal of making money, or helping your token buyers to make money, right? So that's when a more creative stuff can come out. And I feel like before it was much harder to find projects that were about something else beyond money, because the money was so much around, and those projects around money were so many and so big. Now it feels like the stakes aren't that high, so only those who actually care are trying to build something, which is cool, basically.
Well, I read your article on Substack about the stoner cats. I thought it was super informative. The
Oh
stoner
yeah.
cats, the stoner cats. Actually, look, I don't know anything about that, but I learned a lot from your article. For me, they were just one of the projects that allowed me to understand what an NFT could be. It made sense
uh,
when I don't know what NFTs are. Okay, I get this, which allows me to go on their website and then unlock something. Like I got it.
yeah.
That was a light bulb for me. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm curious of your thoughts of, I don't know if you followed the SEC and all that stuff since that article has come
Yeah.
out, but I'm curious of
Yeah.
like your thoughts on that. But I'm curious also of just the general like marketing tactics that like where do you draw that line? Because they were doing things that were cited specifically there about um, which seems crazy that someone with a business would actually say to do, but they were, saying buy the dip and then go buy more stoner cats, right? I think that's pretty stupid. I think that's pretty unethical to do that.
So yeah, I mean, I wrote, this was probably the second article about stoner cats, if you've read it recently, because I wrote another one during their mint, which was
Mm,
like 2 years ago probably. And the reason, I mean, the way I'm picking up sort of stories that I dive really deep into is based on the fact, like, if I'm just scrolling down the Twitter or X, whatever we call it now, and there is something happening that people are really passionate about and talking about, and it's kind of a hot topic. I'm trying to understand like why it has become hot topic and what's the drama around it, right? So during the stoner cats, like the whole drama was around, first of all, like celebrities, cash grab sort of accusations. Vitalik was involved, which was kind of something rare and unique about it. And so that was kind of what grabbed initial attention. And then they had issues during mint, and then many people lost tons of money in gas fees. So there was a big drama around that. Then they promised to reimburse, I think they reimbursed the gas fees eventually and all that stuff. But there was also a lot of top kind of conversations around the IP itself, because it felt like the buyers were not actually getting IP. And the reasoning behind it was like, they told either the Discord mod or someone told that we don't want that because people will
mhm,
draw dicks to those cats, which is exactly what happened. Eventually
mhm.
they gave the idea, and like a guy on Twitter actually started drawing those dicks on the stoner cats and all that stuff, right? So that was like the first story about the whole roller coaster until the mint, and then the mint happened. Eventually, like during these 2 years or so, they had, I don't know, 3-4 episodes released
Mhm.
up to then, not too many, so it didn't feel like they did tons of work out there. In terms of SEC, I didn't really deep dig deep into like the whole accusations thing, but it feels like basically in their marketing materials they somehow implied that if the cartoon series becomes successful, it
Mhm.
will impact positively the price of the NFT. right?
Yep.
So anytime when you do promotion where you imply that the token buyer is going to get some kind of gain, in many cases it can be like direct gain in terms of how the token has been shaped. So let's say if the token includes revenue share, or kind of, sharing part of the royalties that they are getting with their token buyers, that immediately puts it into a securities kind of category of the token, right? Here in this case, they were promoting, kind of implying that you're going to make money because the price will increase, because we would do well and kind of, have a successful series release and all that stuff. So I feel like that's where the problem was coming, the way it was positioned,
Hmm.
because you're not supposed to talk about, I mean, usually, I mean, as marketing, I was always advised to be very careful in our messages, in promotions,
Hmm.
implying or discussing any price action. So to be on the safe side, you shouldn't really touch the subject at all. And it not only implies, as far as I know, the public channels like social media, etc., it also includes mods conversations in Discord channels, in Telegram channels, and all that stuff. So even if it's just a closed communication just with your token buyer specifically, even that, although it's not public, you still have to be very cautious in terms of, what you can cover and how you should phrase things. So if I'm not mistaken, again, I'm not a lawyer and I haven't looked too deep
Hmm.
into that, but as far as I know, it was exactly kind of, the way they promoted it, and that implication that they were basically in different words, but they were saying, if you buy this in the future, you're going to make money, basically,
Yep.
which is more or less what most of the NFT collections were saying, which means that I don't think Stoner Cats is the last one to be in that situation.
No, no, they
And
haven't been, and they won't be.
probably, yeah, so
Yep.
probably people will end up with wallets, which would be like graveyards with NFTs that can't be really traded much. Um, because, once that kind of decision happens, then they get delisted from marketplaces. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
It's
it looks like they got like a slap on the wrist on some levels. I think they had to like pay a fine, obviously, but they still made
yeah,
profit. I think they made what, 9 million according to the article, something along those lines, or 6 million, something like that. But they had to pay
yeah,
a small fine. They had to destroy the NFTs in their possession, and then they had to take away secondary sales. And when I read that, I was like, let me unpack that a little bit. It makes totally sense if you're telling people to eat the ETH is down, go buy more stoner cats, and you have secondary sales. Look, again, I'm
yeah,
not saying anything bad about them. I actually owned a stoner cat and they were huge. And I still talk about how they were huge in my understanding of NFTs, but beyond watching a couple episodes, I never really paid attention into after that. But
yeah.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head. Like, they're definitely not the last. So I think I'm definitely excited that um, uh, in a good way and a bad way, that that people will get more guidance out there. But what I took from that was, obviously it's just common sense. You avoid speculation in your marketing, and in a big part of
That's,
people getting into is marketing issues.
I think that's the whole thing, right? Like, I've been in marketing since the ICO times, and it's not like, yeah, in the very beginning there was no regulation, but later on the regulation came in. There were different laws and guidelines and all that stuff. I feel like the issue was not that there were no laws. The issue was that until recently, those laws were not reinforced and no one has been punished before. So no one was really probably seriously taking into account all those things. No one actually, like, not many projects actually consulted lawyers around some stuff, right, while modeling the tokenomics, kind of, the token model, and all that stuff. So now, like, after so much time has passed and so much stuff has already been done, now going backwards, people are looking into how things were done. And in most cases, because, like, first of all, regulation wasn't very clear in the very beginning. It was like very, there were tons of gray areas, and there were no precedents, no cases before that. It was very hard to predict, kind of, how serious the things you're doing, the impact of it could be, right? So, but looking at it, and from the speculator perspective, kind of, and human nature and community, right? If this happens and the NFTs under their possession are being burned, essentially the token holders are the only ones who have the NFT. And if it's a really sort of, very passionate community, and in their mind those tokens actually have value, and I'm not talking about, Stoner Cats, but
Mhm.
in general, if it's like a delisted project, whatever, I mean, no one can take those tokens away from them. They can still find ways to maybe interact, and maybe in the secondary, just that thing may even increase the price. Who knows, right? It's very interesting to sort of look at how decentralized sort of setup works, and how people find their ways around the centralized marketplaces, right? So I don't know, like, but it's very interesting how I feel like each community will be reacting differently in very similar situations. So we'll see how it goes. Like, it's. I mean, I always bring the Funks
Yep.
community as an example, because they were delisted. The founder and the whole team left the community by themselves, and they got together and they built their own marketplace to trade the funks, and the community is still very strong. It's still kind of around, and yeah, I mean, it totally proves their values, what they stand for, and the fact that they are still united and still around. So it's always kind of going to be interesting to see when things happen, how communities actually react and behave after that. So
Yeah, no, but I think we talked about it earlier about from a business, and you don't do things from like a money motivation to start. Like things kind of generally
yeah,
take care of themselves. So like, if the same thing with if you have an NFT project or a business or something like that, same type of deal. So like money shouldn't be the first motivator for anybody, for the business or the person jumping in. And if it
yeah.
is, then it's probably, some people get lucky, a lot of people, I guess, but for me, that's not the first two criteria for anything that I start or be a part of.
That's the thing. That's you said lucky, and in most cases, it is pure luck. But
Mhm.
the interesting thing is, like, when you're looking at all these Twitter influencers, like in many cases, when they make tons of money, they are not lucky. They are super smart. But then
Mhm.
when they lose money, it's not them being dumb, but it's the market, right? It's always kind of this narrative of positioning and twisting things in under the different angles that kind of um, make them look better, I guess. I don't know, but like
But
very few people actually admit the fact that it's not them being smart traders, but it's just pure luck.
Well, that would be not even disingenuous to the audience. The audience, if they admit that, it would be disingenuous to themselves, because most people don't believe that. That's their reality. Like if people make money, that's human nature. That they believe that a lot of the times that they did it. And in some cases that is, but like even real talk, when we did that Bitcoin animation to explain it, Bitcoin was super low, so just jumped in that, and when it went up, like here, I know exactly what I'm doing, right? But the reality is, that you literally got lucky, and then it went down, and you're like, oh man, what are you gonna do? But I still believe in it, and then it goes up, and it's like, you go through those roller coaster of
It's
emotions, but that's human nature, and if you take the walls of people's reality, that's when they go crazy.
mm,
So they
yeah.
can't let themselves believe that.
Yeah, that's true. But then again, like, the whole reality check thing is something that I periodically need to have,
Hmm.
and people who follow me will know. And it's funny because I don't really want to add toxicity to the space, but somehow when I get really passionate and very pissed, and I sometimes would just go and live stream like a short rant sessions of mine about certain topic, those perform the best, unfortunately, because it feels like the negative emotions are kind of spreading faster somehow. I don't know, but yeah, I feel like there are loads of topics that I can rant about, because it's kind of the space. We've been around for so long, and everyone claims that we're still early. I kind of don't buy that so much, because yes, we are still early, but it's been like 10 plus years anyway. So it's not like, we're too early. But still, there are loads of things that we keep doing again and again, the same mistakes, the same bad players, the same situations that happen as deja vus again and again and again. And sometimes it's time to sort of stop and try to reevaluate and see, okay, now what do we need to do differently in order to just break that cycle? So yeah, I mean, I guess we can wrap up with that topic. Like, obviously renting works to some extent, but if we just all of us just talk about stuff we're not unhappy about and not really look for solutions and try to contribute somehow in our own small capacity, then we are sure that nothing is going to change. So how do we change this?
Well, I think again, everything in this whole conversation, I feel like we've talked about is human emotions. The reason that your rants do well is that's the same reason like the nightly news does well, and they lead with like bad things, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
just what gets people's attention, and everybody's looking for attention. So you could tweet about the cool shop that you got your T-shirt in, but are people really gonna watch that or remember that or what? Some will, and those are the people that you'll connect with the most. But for the majority, and that's where people that do have aspirations to grow an audience or be big, like they sell there's a little bit of their soul at some point. And it doesn't mean they're bad people, but there are things that you have to do. And then I think we're in a cycle because we live in such a little bubble of time and space, and that's even become more so in the last few years. But the reality is these things are not new. If you go back and I remember in a book I read, it was old. I was collecting old books, and it was from P.T. Barnum. It was written in the 1800s,
Oh, wow.
and you could read that thing, and you swap a few like um, Miladies and horse buggies out of that, and substitute them with cars. This thing could be written by Tony Robbins. It's the same friggin' thing, right? It says basically like get up, work hard, have a positive attitude,
Mm,
save your money. Like these are the same things. So everything gets regurgitated, and it becomes a cycle because there's new people that come in. There's younger people
yeah.
with these same emotions
Mm.
that's happening, and maybe they're happening in a different place. Maybe it's happening in like a Roblox community as these kids are aging up. But the reality, all of this stuff is happened in the 1800s, just in different forms, in my view.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. So basically, yeah, I guess looking back, we can get lots of insights. Like even in this space, when someone is coming, I think looking back and seeing how things developed from the ICO times, because I feel like it's the repetition of the same cycle. Like the packaging is slightly different. Like the story has a different flavors to it, but like the ICO hype cycle and then the DeFi summer and the NFT hype cycle, they are all following the same blueprint and the same sort of things developed the same way and ended the same way as well as a result. So just going over that would make you immune enough, like not to get shocked and super surprised about how things develop or how things happen in this space, because it's kind of, yeah, we've seen it before. There's
Mhm.
nothing extraordinary new about it. Like everything, like FTX, yes, maybe we haven't seen it to such an extent, because with each hype cycle the amount of the money is different and it scales up and up at each time. Maybe the scale has been different, but we've seen those exchanges go bust, right? It's not like the first time that this is happening. Like we had scammers, they were different, they are not around now. We have new ones come in, but the mechanism of scamming, the kind of the way they behaved, the whole influencer vibe was very similar as well, right? So it's just about looking back and kind of predicting the future, because yeah, I mean the history rhymes, right? So yeah, I think that would be a good thing, and everything is available, it's out there, it's public. All you have to do is Google it and spend a bit of time just going over it. That's all.
There's the inside joke of the Nigerian prince or whatever, that's the scam of people, right?
Yeah.
But you see the news now, and somebody is calling with a voice of the kid to his grandma or something, and it's his voice that's cloned on AI that says he needs money for that stuff. Like, it's the same scam, just packaged up in a different way. So if you
And it's
understand that,
getting trickier, right?
yeah,
It's
it's getting
getting
trickier.
trickier now. Yeah.
It's getting trickier for sure. So, but if you understand that, and I think take time to understand human emotions and why humans act that way, because you find a lot about yourself as well. But you'll see why things people do the way things they do. You'll see why
Yeah.
people do upsells and downsells and everything in between for their marketing, is because it works. So hopefully that people the bad actors, or some of them, have gone out. Hopefully that people have made some real genuine connections, found some real genuine communities, worked on some really badass things,
Yeah.
so that when those people come back, there's no time for that stuff, and just understanding not to chase the shiny object. That's my hope of what happens when this thing does come, because it will, and it won't be called NFTs or Web3. I don't even know what it's going to be packaged up as, but there will be some use case that will come up, and it's nothing new. Whether there's Tom Brady with FTX, or Linda Hamilton or Linda Evans with Palm Olive, like, it's the same type of playbook, and celebrities sell things. Unfortunately, people lie, unfortunately, and they prey on the people that were going to make this thing great in the first place, but I think hopefully still can.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's we covered loads of sort of negative stuff in our conversation, but obviously, I would like to highlight that me and my podcast guests are still around. There is a reason behind it. We still believe in the future, and we still believe that there is lots of magic and beauty in this space, and there are tons of really nice people around, and really good people who do build interesting and useful things. And that's one of the reasons of this podcast, because I have a feeling that most of these people are not so visible, and they are not appreciated enough, and I just want to find those people and kind of have real conversations about stuff, versus kind of just go live and shill a certain meme coin or a token or an NFT collection, which kind of I don't think it's going to bring any value to the space, or there are tons of people who already do that, so you get that content even more than you probably need. So there's no need for that, for an extra one, especially coming from me, because I'm a lousy shiller anyway. So
same deal. And look, I've listened to some of your podcasts, and I'm like definitely the worst guest you've had on this stuff. We were all over the place because of me, but in the reality is we had a really genuine conversation, right? That I thought there's some things that we'll take away, and this is just how we communicate. So this was awesome, and if people got to be a fly on the wall with it, great. If not, I genuinely enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll do it again.
So did I. Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone who was watching. Obviously, as always, I'll just publish this as an audio podcast on all the platforms as well. So we'll see you next time in a week or so. So next week we'll have another episode. I'll announce the guest later on. So take care, everyone. Thanks a lot, John. And we'll stick around and speak a bit more. But bye, everyone. Thanks for watching.